for Colonel Gaddafi and the Libyan government. He's been saying for a while that there are foreign influences among the protesters, that old colonial powers are desperate to get involved. Now he has something concrete to back that up. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, outside the Libyan embassy in London.
The exodus from Libya and North Africa goes on. In a single night, boats carrying more than 1,000 illegal immigrants have arrived at the southern Italian island of Lampedusa. Calm weather facilitated the journey as they escape the unrest. Here's Tanya Page.
Boats crowded with people hoping to make a better life in Europe. This annual wave of illegal migrants from North Africa is predictable and unstoppable, and this season is promising to be busy. In just one night, boats carrying more than 1,000 people landed in the Italian island of Lampedusa. Most are Tunisian and Egyptian. Authorities fear many Libyans will follow.
So far we have contained the impact well, despite the very high number of migrants. We've had more than 1,000 people arriving overnight, and we've welcomed them at the holding centre. Fortunately, we had only 314 migrants to start with, so the numbers have stayed beneath a critical level.
Thousands of illegal migrants have arrived in Lampedusa this year. In February, over 4,000 Tunisians landed during one weekend of fine weather. The island's holding centre has a capacity of about 800, so they're quickly ferried or flown to larger detention centres in Italy. But some locals worry about the effect on tourism.
I hope they don't go around breaking things and misbehaving, and let's hope that tourists will still come this summer. Otherwise, this year will be very difficult for us.
In my opinion, people are afraid of Gaddafi, of what's happening in Libya and the war taking place in the Mediterranean. It's not a question of the migrants. Migrants have been coming here for 20 years, and we've never had problems with tourism.
Tunisia and Libya have agreements with Italy to prevent illegal immigration, but both have far greater concerns right now. Italy has asked its European neighbours for help, but many have refused, saying it's too early to predict migrant numbers. Tanya Page, Al Jazeera.
I'll be back a little later in the news hour, but for now, let's go back to Doha.
Take a look at what's been happening in Yemen. Reports that riots have broken out near a prison in the capital, Sana'a. Let's go to our correspondent, Hashim Al-Bara, who's there. What can you tell us about what's happened there?
David, we managed to talk to an inmate inside Sana'a's central prison, which is one of the largest incarceration facilities in Yemen. He told us that his colleagues decided to organize a sort of sitting, chanting slogans and asking Ali Abdullah Saleh to go. So this was more of a politically motivated attempt by the colleagues to echo the same demands that have been mentioned by protesters everywhere in the country. And the security forces fired tear gas canisters. There were also gunshots heard. There is a military security forces have been summoned and there is now presence outside the prison facility. We were also told that there are some injured people during the clashes, but other official sources are telling Al Jazeera that the situation is for the time being contained.
It sort of goes against, doesn't it, this idea that they're part of the protest. It goes against what officials in Sana'a are saying, that this was simply an attempt at a mass escape. When the opposition talks about escalating the protest, is this the sort of thing it may have had in mind?
Absolutely. For the opposition, this is going to be a large-scale movement which takes place everywhere, where people from all walks of life have to take into account the need to put more pressure on President Ali Abdullah Saleh to step aside. Ali Abdullah Saleh, in an attempt to counter this momentum, has called for a national dialogue this Wednesday. However, the opposition doesn't seem to be really very excited about this idea, and the clerics are about to issue a statement, perhaps tonight or early morning, talking about the situation of impasse in Yemen. So it seems to be very, very tense here in the capital and also across the country.
Thank you very much, Hashim. The new Prime Minister of Egypt, Essam Sharaf, has appointed a new caretaker cabinet in Cairo. This is the swearing-in ceremony. In the uniform, the head of Egypt's armed forces, Mohammed Hussein Tantawi. Egypt's prosecutor has ordered the detention of 47 police officers for allegedly burning documents at several state security headquarters. And we'll get more on this now, talking to Ayman Mohyeddin in Cairo. May want to, if you feel like it, talk about the new government in just a moment. But this idea that senior police have been arrested, that's a pretty new thing, isn't it?
It is. I mean, to imagine just a short while ago, you know, talking about 6 or 8 weeks ago, that Egypt's general prosecutor would put 47 senior members of state security under arrest for alleged wrongdoing would have been a very unimaginable thing to hear of. It's not to say that previous cases didn't happen in the past, but isolated cases against 1 or 2 individuals at best. What is so particularly unique about what has happened in the past 72 hours is that not only have the protesters demanded that these individuals be arrested, to which the prosecutor general responded, but because he was so quick in the way he ordered all state security buildings sealed, all the evidence and documents that they allegedly destroyed handed to the military with other documents. So it is a very rapid process of justice, if you will, that only gives more confidence to the protesters and their demands.
Tell us a little bit about the makeup of this new government, if you think it's really worth going into it, considering how many changes there have been since it all started happening.
Well, if you had to look at the number of changes, you're right. They don't look too significant, and certainly not in terms of the quantity. But when you talk about the individual ministers that were brought in and which portfolios they were given, you could clearly see why it is such a positive step in the eyes of the protesters. First of all, you start with the Prime Minister. Essam Sharaf, very well-respected individual. His name was actually brought forth by a group of revolutionary coalition members. So he was an individual that was a consensus Prime Minister without a doubt. At the same time, key ministries such as Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Interior, all 3 individuals very well respected, and they mark a very clean departure from the past. Although many of them served under the former President Mubarak, they were well-respected individuals, their track record really untarnished, and they come with a great deal of street confidence, if you will, or at least street credibility. So there's no doubt that the individuals that are making up those very important new ministries are coming with a great vote of confidence from the protesters, and they certainly have a lot on their plate because they have a very long road of reform ahead of them.
And without your insight, Ayman, they would have been just names on a paper. Thank you very much indeed for making that clear for us. The interim Prime Minister in Tunisia, Beji Caid Sebsi, has unveiled his new cabinet after a spate of resignations. It's going to be the 3rd caretaker government since President Ben Ali was kicked out in January. Caid Sebsi was appointed after the previous interim Prime Minister, Mohamed Ghannouchi, resigned after the violent protests because of his close ties to Ben Ali. AlJazeera's Nazanin Moshiri was at the Prime Minister's press conference in Tunis.
You've spoken a lot about the security dangers to